Okay, thank you. I'm going to call this meeting to order. And to start the meeting, I'll ask you all to rise for the national anthem.
We would like to acknowledge
that we are here today
on the traditional territory
of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation.
Nous tenons à reconnaître que
nous sommes sur le territoire traditionnel
des Mississaugas de la Première Nation de Credit.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. Quand on grâce est porté le pays, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you, everyone. So the first item of business is to go through the agenda and approve that. We have a late addition, really a change to item 9.3, the motion by Trustee Cameron. The title has been changed to Human Sex Trafficking Prevention Strategy. So I'll need 2/3 to approve this change and motion. So Trustee Lawton, would you put that on the floor? Trustee Crocker, would you second that? All those in favor of the agenda with the change? Hands, please. I have to have 2/3. Okay, so approved. Okay, the next item is declaration of conflict of interest. Do I have anyone who has a conflict of interest, any items on the table today? Seeing none, I will go to the board meeting minutes for approval of the board meeting of January 28th. So Trustee McDonald, can you put that on the floor? And Trustee Davies, would you second that? Does anyone have any comments or questions? All those in approval? So approved. Do I have any requests for written questions from trustees? So I see a couple of people on here, so let me just give that. Trustee DeCroop, you have a written question?
I do, thank you, Chair. My written question is, what is the mandate of the Region of Peel's Community Safety Plan Committee, and what is the Peel District School Board's role and involvement on this committee? And I'll pass it to the recorder.
Great, so could you pass that to Donna Baptiste, and she will pass it on to staff to get a response at the next, hopefully at the next board meeting. So I have the next written question from Trustee McDonald.
Thank you, through you, Chair. So I'm going to resubmit the questions I asked last week because I did not submit the written copy. So what are any guidelines in the PDSB which outlines the protocols that should be followed, and are there circumstances outlined when a staff should call police on minors, and how are staff that frivolously call the police and held accountable? What protocol is evoked when the police are called to a PDS school to arrest a student? When the police are called to a school to arrest a minor, when are the parents to be notified? Why are the police called to arrest students at school for non-emergent issues? If a student is accused, and I'm giving an example because I'm trying to understand the process, of example stealing, say, $6, and it's discovered that the student denies stealing the money, There were no weapons involved. And
Okay,
the student,
Trustee, let's not talk about specifics of any incident.
no, I'm just asking about how, okay, so who will be given the directive to arrest a student? Like, who gives that directive?
Okay,
When a teacher or administrations are questioning students about a crime, are they required to call home and notify parents before questioning minors because they are getting information that can lead to their arrest? What measures does the PDSB have in place when arresting students that they minimize the shaming and parading them in front of their peers? Are all staff and administrators required to adopt the progressive discipline whole school approach that utilizes a continuum of preventative programs, intervention, supports, and consequences to address inappropriate student behavior and build upon strategies that promote and foster positive behaviors? If yes, how do we monitor staff and administrators that are indeed that are not following the progressive discipline models? And then, sorry, if they are following the progressive discipline models, and what happens when they don't? Also, yeah,
okay.
that's it, thank you.
Those are a lot of good in-depth questions, so the staff will do their best to answer those by next board meeting, but they may have to slip some of those responses, but we'll do our best. Okay, since you're written, please submit them over to Donna Baptiste so we can properly. We're not at that point in time, we're only at written questions. Okay, understand. Sorry. Okay. Also, we have a next set of questions from Trustee Sohi.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, my question is, how many Canadian-born Peel District School Board students are identified as ESL and ELL learners? What screening tools does PDSB use to identify these students? Thank you.
Okay, that question, I think it goes into probably our census data. So can I'm not sure if we can get an answer right away on that, but thank you. We'll do our best to figure out where it comes from. Okay, thank you. Any other written questions? Okay, moving on to the next item is notice of motions. So I have first notice of motion, Trustee DeCroop.
Thank you, Chair. My notice of motion is as follows. Whereas excessive discipline has had a significant impact on Black, African, and other racialized, marginalized groups in our school system. Whereas the Peel District School Board is the second largest board in the province of Ontario, serving 155,000 students in one of the most diverse regions in Canada. Whereas the Peel District School Board is currently under review by the Ministry of Education for anti-Black racism and discriminatory practices. Whereas the interim report of the Ministry's review cites the board for profound unequal relationships, marginalization, and harassment concerns. Whereas in recent months, we have learned of multiple incidents at Peel Board schools where children, specifically Black children, were victims of excessive discipline practices that have resulted in frequent and unnecessary interactions with the police. Be it resolved that the Peel District School Board require that in non-emergency situations, the school administrators must contact parents, guardians, or family members prior to contacting the police. Be it further resolved that the Peel District School Board require that in non-emergency situations, school resource officers must wait for a parent, guardian, family member to be present prior to investigating, arresting, or handcuffing any student on Peel District School Board property. Be it further resolved that the Peel District School Board enact a committee that includes 2 trustees, representation from Peel Regional Police, and community members to review the local police school board protocol and the school resource officer program in order to ensure equitable and fair practices, and that the SRO program maintains a positive impact on our students and our school communities, as is its purpose.
Thank you. So you're going to hand that over to Donna Baptiste. Thank you. Perfect. Okay, next up, Trustee McDonald, do you have a motion?
Yes, I do. Thank you. So my first motion is, be it resolved that the Peel District School Board staff provide a detailed report on suspensions, expulsions, and the number of students that are arrested and/or handcuffed at any Peel District School Board school for the past 5 years. Wherever possible, a racial breakdown of who are the students being arrested, handcuffed, expelled, and/or suspended be provided. The report should also include all schools where such incidences occurred. My second notice of motion.
Okay, so you've crossed a line. We can't identify schools and possibly students in this, and it would have to go in
I
committee.
didn't ask for
You
students.
mentioned schools and stuff.
So the schools where you can't.
No, we can't. And some of the data may be collected may identify certain individuals. So,
Okay, so we can leave, I could omit the school part then.
so can I ask you to maybe work with our parliamentarian Nicole to just make sure that we stay within the guidelines of not identifying, or Trustee Vice Chair will help work
Okay.
with you to identify what can be said or not.
Okay,
Is that okay?
okay, sure.
I just want to make, I understand the intent, and it's very good. It's just, we just want to make sure that we don't cross the line, that we
So what
can't.
about if I just omit the naming of the schools then? So still just bring the breakdown of, because I still want the racial breakdown. Can we not get that?
I want to support you in this motion.
Okay.
Can we just connect you with Vice Chair Green and just make sure it's okay?
Okay,
And then, if it's okay, we will take that motion and put it on the next agenda. Is that okay if we
Okay,
rewrite
sure.
it? Okay?
so my second
Second
is-
motion, yeah.
Yeah. Be it resolved that the Peel District School Board appoint an administrator as a Weed Rise coordinator whose sole job will be ensuring that the We Rise Together action plan comes to fruition. And my final motion is be it resolved, the preamble. Around 3 years ago, Trustee Nurse had a motion regarding a pilot study on de-streaming. Be it resolved that the Peel District School Board get an update on this pilot project.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that's good. So you'll hand those two motions the last two to Donna Baptiste, and Trustee Green will work with you on the first one just to make sure it stays outside the privileged and confidential side of our students and our staff. No, I just have one answer. There's lots of on the table there. Okay. Thank you, Trustee McDonald. So no other notices of motion? We're good? Okay, so now we're going to go on to Section 6, section for recognition. Let me just move my papers. Catch up. So this is Black History Month, and on behalf of the Peel District School Board of Trustees, it gives me great pleasure to recognize Black History Month at the Peel District School Board. Black History Month is a time to honor the legacy of Black Canadians, past, present, and the great future that we're inspiring through our education system here. During Black History Month, Canadians celebrate the many achievements and contributions of Black Canadians who throughout history have done so much to make Canada the cultural, diverse, compassionate, and prosperous country we know today. Here at the board, there are beautiful displays of artwork out in the atrium that you may have seen on your way in tonight. And if you haven't, please take a look. It is pretty spectacular. Paintings, collages, and drawings created by who? Our own students. Great Peel students. The board's Black History Month poster, which was sent to all the Peel School Board, to to all the school boards also features amazing student artwork. This past Monday, I guess that was just yesterday, I had the pleasure of visiting students and staff at Artesian Drive to take part in one of their many activities that are taking place throughout all our schools commemorating this Black History Month. Kingsley Alexander, professional boxer and motivating speaker, led students and staff in a boxing workshop and spoke about the importance of discipline and goal setting. I believe at the next board meeting, we'll see a video of that because it was being taped by our communications. Additionally, Director Joshua will be visiting the students and staff of Artesian in the coming weeks to also experience firsthand the events and activities and learning opportunities taking place in honor of our Black History Month. There will be, as I said, there will be a special video on February showing that, which I'm looking forward to seeing because I could only stay for a short period of time yesterday. We need to ensure that this is important learning continues not only just this month, but throughout the whole year. Nelson Mandela emphasized the importance of education and power to change the world, and we need to educate those around us to ensure that history is always remembered and remains alive so we can move it forward with our great generation, our future in our kids. I encourage not just trustees, not just staff, but parents to take part in many of these enriching activities, events, and celebrations across the entire board at all our wonderful local schools. I would like now to turn the mic over to Vice Chair Green to say a few words.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, appreciate that. And just to recognize that this is a time and part of our heritage that we celebrate. I had the opportunity to visit many schools, and in all those schools, celebrating our rich past and the present and the future. Because I believe that children need to understand their past so that they can move into their future. Because without their past, they have no future. And I was able even this morning to speak to a group of students at Turner Fenton Secondary School to inspire them about finding their passion, finding their dreams, and let no one tell them that they can't do it. And how they need to stand up and advocate for themselves. And that understanding that they being Black does not deprive them of anything in life. That they have a right to be in their school, they have a right to succeed, they have a right to university, they have a right to any job that they deserve. Because they earn that space just like anyone else. And they need to own that space, be comfortable in that space, stand up and let their voice be heard that we belong here just like anyone else. So we will continue as a board to inspire our students to let them know that this space belongs to them and they need to own it and advocate for whatever they need as students to make sure that they're reaching their full potential in life. So we'll continue to celebrate Black History Month and continue to supporting the work of the many schools that are in place right now and the work that will continue even after I'm gone. So thank you.
Thank you, Chair Green. Well said. So we're now going to move on to, sorry, I got to receive that. Do I have Trustee Benjamin? Do you want to put that on the floor? Trustee Marchand, do you want to second that? All those in favor of receipt? So be it. Thank you. Approved. Okay, we're going to move on to delegations. So that's our next step in the process. We have 5 delegations. The Peel District School Board creates a connection to the community through our delegation process to bring the issues from the community to the attention of trustees. This is one way information can be shared with us along with many others. As chair of the regular meeting of the board, I would like to begin each delegation portion by meeting by reminding everyone of our bylaws that are important so everyone understands the delegation process. First of all, bylaw G3, delegations may express opinions with regards to board decisions or make submissions with respect to recommendations. Delegations are expected to be issue-based and respectful. Delegations must refrain from making any statements concerning the character or performance of identifiable individuals. That includes students, staff, citizens, and trustees of the board. Any delegation who violates this recommendation during their presentation or does not comply with our Safe School Policy 48 when they are on board policy or disobey the decision of the chair of the board may be ordered by the chair to discontinue the presentation and/or leave the boardroom or meeting and premises. Per bylaw G6, when several delegations wish to address the board on the same topic on the same evening, which we have tonight, the chair may reduce the time to each presentation to 5 minutes. This is communicated with all delegates ahead of their delegation. Finally, G4, after a decision has been made to receive the delegation, the secretary of the board or designate shall confirm the date and time of the delegation, shall advise the delegate of the bylaws of the board related to the delegation and request the delegation present any materials in writing at least 5 business days prior to the meeting. So that's in our bylaws. Anyway, that done, we are happy to listen to your delegations. And when finished, please wait for questions of clarification only from our trustees. Yes?
Thank you. I appreciate that. I would like to appeal the chair's ruling to decrease the amount of the delegations from 10 minutes to 5 minutes because I'm very concerned because it's never been done before, and I strongly feel that we need to be more democratic and not less democratic and ensure that the voices of our community, specifically our Black community, are heard. So I'd like to appeal the chair's ruling.
I understand, according to our bylaw. Then if you are going against our, the delegation, which I just read out, by the way, is the chair's discretion, which I've moved to 5 minutes, so we can have, therefore, a vote to overrule a rule or override my 5 minutes. So in that process, as outlined in our bylaws, I hand it over to the secretary, which is the director of the board, and he will ask for a vote. There is no debate, there's just a vote. And make sure that we all understand this process. You're voting, I'll let the director talk about the vote because it's almost like a double negative in the way it goes. Okay. So, Director Joshua.
Thank you. And through you, Chair, according to our bylaw D15, to overrule the decision by the chair, a majority of the members must vote in favor of the appeal. So when you're voting in favor of the appeal, you're voting against the decision made by the chair. So I'm going to ask our trustees, all in favor of the appeal against the chair's ruling. Thank you, and I have 3 trustees. And all those who are against the appeal, which is against the chair's ruling. Okay, so that appeal is denied.
Thank you. So we have our first delegation by Maggie Amin. Would you like to come up to the microphone? Per staff, you please announce who you are. I think I've said it, but what school you represent, and you have 5 minutes to delegate. Thank you.
My name is Maggie Amin. Good evening, everybody. My name is Maggie Amin, founder of the Islamic Cultural Center of Toronto. Our programs rent out Stephen Lewis, but I'm here, Stephen Lewis Secondary School, but I'm here to represent many other weekend programs. I'm here to request a commitment from Peel District School Board to reinstate the subsidy again for 2020, and I'd like to start by thanking you for reinstating the subsidy for this year. And I'm here today to explain something about the Muslim community. Muslims have a divine obligation to teach their children Arabic language and Islamic studies. Arabic allows our children to read and understand our holy book, Al-Quran. If Peel were to remove the subsidy for the next academic year, 2020, our weekend programs may cease to exist and Peel will be contributing once more, and I'm underlining this, once more, to the rise of private Islamic schools and homeschooling programs in the Peel region. We've seen a similar situation when the previous government introduced the sex ed program, when our mosques turned into daily schools and our houses turned into homeschooling centers. If the subsidy is to be removed, Peel will lose enrollment of hundreds of Muslim students, which I believe are more than 20% of your population, to the very successful Islamic private institutions. And I have here copies of the 2019 Fraser Institute report showing how high private Islamic schools are rating in Toronto. In conclusion, Peel will lose enrollment as you leave Muslims with no other choice but to go to private Islamic. This will spiral into more budget cuts for you and job loss at your board. You may claim that pulling the subsidy has nothing to do with Islamophobia, but it sure seems this way to us. Our perception is that it is Islamophobic since a large number of facility rental are Islamic Arabic programs in terms of the number of students and guests attending. You may also claim that pulling the subsidy is a financial move due to budget cuts. We also disagree with that since Peel has not yet demonstrated the need for the $1.3 million you still have in reserve. We still believe Peel District School Board is using the $1.3 million subsidy as a political pressure on the Ministry of Education. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You have your speaking notes, so that would be nice if you can pass it over to Donna Baptiste. So the next thing is, do I have any questions of clarifications about the recent delegation? No questions. I want to thank you. Our attempt will be to have a response to you at the next board meeting.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, our next delegate is Sherwood Karam. I'd like you to come up, announce yourself and where you are in our Great Peel organization, and commence with your delegation, which is 5 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman, trustees. My name is Sherwood Karam, and I'm the founder of Arab Culture Development Center organization. It's a non-for-profit organization, and we are renting on Sunday the Erin Mills Middle School. I'm here today just to, first of all, I would like to thank you for supporting us in reinstating the subsidy for the current year's rental. Thank you very much. Before I start with my questions, I would like to highlight the importance of our programs to our Arab Muslim community. My 3 children have grown up in these programs, and now they are successfully pursuing their careers in our society as academic and engineers. These programs are considered mandatory and essential to each Arab Muslim family here in Canada, allowing our children to bridge the Canadian culture with their own culture and religion. Without it, they would have grown up missing a crucial part of their identity and faith. This upbringing is exactly what allows them to operate so successfully in this rapidly growing multicultural community. Our program, as well others, make it a mission to provide this program as an affordable solution, logistically requiring buildings and classrooms in this district that can really only be provided by the Peel board. We couldn't find any other alternatives. If our programs get shut down due to the hike in rental fees, we would be only left with a few options. For some, as Maggie mentioned, private schooling may be an option, but surely not for the rest of the community, for 2 reasons. Firstly, it won't be financially affordable. Secondly, and more importantly, it will eventually risk divergence from the rest of the Canadian communities that we want our kids to be included in. For others, the only option would be to go back to their countries in an effort to rescue and preserve their culture and religion, taking with them the investment that Canada made into their children. And it suddenly becomes a lose-lose situation for everyone. None of these options support an integrated lifestyle for our children, and this is why we ask for your help in maintaining our programs for long term. We don't want to be shut down and see these buildings closed on weekends, while we know it can support and serve with great value to different communities. Before I pass it along to my daughter, I'll ask the first part of the question. My question today is based on the worries surrounding the upcoming decisions regarding next year's rental. Where are we now? What are the steps that have been taken so far with the provincial and municipal partners in working to secure funding for the upcoming year? Thank you very much. I'll pass it for my daughter. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, Director, and Trustees. My name is May Waggy, and I'm one of the program coordinators. I've lived in Canada since I was 4 years old and have been enrolled in these programs from kindergarten all the way up until grade 12. It's because of these programs that I was able to maintain my ability to speak Arabic, to practice my religion, and to live an integrated lifestyle with both cultures intact. It's made me stronger, more resilient, and it's taught me important values that I'm able to take with me and apply to my everyday life. As a kid, you don't realize how much these programs do for you, but as an adult now, I'm so grateful to have had this opportunity, which is why it's my turn now to give back to this community and pay it forward to the next generation and our future children. Peel is vocal about fostering inclusion and respecting differences. And so my question then is, moving forward, how are you planning to include us in your decision-making process so that we're not left in the dark until the last minute? Will it be possible to set up individual meetings or regularly publish communications, or at the very least, regular email updates? Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Do I have any questions of clarifications from our trustees? Seeing none, so you have some written notes. We'd love to have you pass over to our assistant, Donna Baptiste. We will hopefully respond to those your delegation at the next board meeting. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, now we'll go to the third one. Riyadh Izwi, are you here? Okay, so please come up. Say your name, what association or part of Peel you're with, and please go through your delegation. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, board members. First of all, I would like to thank all of you for the wise decision that you made about a month ago, rolling back your hurtful decision raising up the rent or removing the subsidies. That previous decision had devastated tens of permit holders and thousands of diverse ethnic and background young Canadians. However, this is behind us now. But you, as our elected representatives, will be asked to make a decision on a new budget that's coming up in June. When you embark on this coming budget, we, as your electors, ask you to keep in mind our sacred mission that we as NGOs took on for years, and always based on trifecta of goodwills. Number one, the goodwill of the community who send their children to these programs and sacrifice to pay the tuitions, sacrifice their time and their weekends to bring their children. Two, the goodwill of our volunteers who educate and counsel the students, sacrificing their time, their family time. And thirdly and last, the goodwill of the PDSB through the community use of the facility program that ensured the sustainability of our services at reasonable cost. I'd like to take you on a journey with one of our NGO's missions. In 1996, our organizations, Muslim Boys and Girls United, has run a Sunday school teaching heritage language and Islamic studies. While our program is focused on teaching students the Arabic language and the Islamic studies, we also aimed to build student characters and introduce them to the Arabian culture, but not forgetting establishing the good Canadian citizenship values early on in their lives. Every Sunday, close to 500 students in our organization, 70 teachers and volunteers use these facilities. With a simple calculation, mathematical one, that's small, that makes over 12,000 students since then, since we started. 1,680 volunteers and 2,160,000 hours of keeping our Canadian youth and newcomers off the streets and out of harm's way, and help them build their future. Some of those students graduated from our schools. They are now educating this next generation, many of them. They're giving back to the community what they received from it. Your job now, as trustees and elected members of the board, your job now is to work hard to find the resources and funds and do whatever it takes to sustain this program. And keep in mind that we're all ready to work with you and lobby and pressure any level of government, hand in hand. Together we can make it. I want to extend a special thanks to Trustee Caucus that took the task and worked hard to get that resolution, the subsidy put back in place. Thank you for serving on this board, all of you. We realized it is not an easy task to tackle, and keep in mind, the best of the people are their servants. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So you have some written notes, so just hold there. We'll pass that later over to Donna Baptiste. Before you go, do we have any questions or clarifications from trustees? Seeing none, thank you very much for your delegation. So the next delegate will be Paula Hilton. Paula, are you here? Yes. So please come up, present yourself, announce your name, where you are part of Peel, and then provide your delegation. Thank you.
Hello, good evening. My name is Idris Urugu. I'm going to be speaking momentarily for Paula. And the question here, when Paula was here, when we were here 2 weeks ago, she had made mention of, she had some concerns in which she was told that the 10 minutes allotted time can be used for her delegation. So what is shocking this evening, watching
So are you delegating now in your 5 minutes?
well,
Are you? I just want to, I'm starting, there's no questions here.
It's part of the delegation.
Okay, perfect. So I started your time.
It is part of the delegation.
Okay.
And I believe in the delegation, it cannot be controlled to such a way where we're not able to express ourselves. She was prepared for 10 minutes. You've given her 5 minutes. Here's the question with regards to this. For somebody who is unable, due to some challenges, to read this being a board that oversees academic preparation for our children, if you can, would you consider the 10 minutes allocated time, or you're going to stick with the 5 minutes?
An accommodation.
You would like an accommodation?
Yes, please.
Absolutely. I will accommodate the 10 minutes, and I just, please, order, everyone. I just, if you would have sent that to us earlier when we gave you the 5 minutes and needed the accommodation, we would have done it, but absolutely. So I'll restart, and please start your 10 minutes, okay.
Thank you. My name is Paula Hilton, and I am a resident, also a parent that has children in the Peel Board system. Okay. Black History Month is known as a time to recognize and celebrate the sacrifices and struggles and contributions that Black people have endured. It's a time also of reflection and goal setting for people of African heritage to ensure that the brutal history of oppression, such as slavery, racism, and discrimination, do not continue for our future generations. At the start of the Peel District School Board meeting held on January 28, 2020, I witnessed the most disrespectful, pathetic act of an apology by a board member to another board member. And I have further witnessed the abuse of power by a male figure in the position of authority, not only silence the voice of the female member, but also silence the voice of the Black community during the question period. Within our Black community, we know that several of our young children are being wrongfully handcuffed on Peel School property. One of our community activists, in consultation with members of the Black community, drafted an email to the trustee in order to start the conversation. To make a long story short, responses from the board trustee, which are documented by email thread, does not sit well within the Black community. Which brings us to the meeting on January 28th, 2020. At the start of the meeting, a male member of the board in the position of authority made an apology to another board member. This was done in public view, and the individual stressed that it needed to be done in order to clear up any misunderstandings since the situation was made public. We have been taught and conditioned that when an apology is made to another person, we should, 1, have direct eye contact, 2, speak with the soft voice tone in order to show empathy, 3, admit our error, 4, wait for a response, and 5, close with, "It will never happen again." Standard apology rules. But this did not take place. Instead, what I witnessed was a ruler talking down to a member of the public and an attempt in an apology that was made by a trustee. The public apology set a tone of negativity for me during the entire meeting. I was not able to focus on what was being discussed. Thank goodness I had received the agenda for the night and noticed that item 17 was the public question period. This meant that I could ask my question of why did you make a public apology when the trustee was not even in the room? What was the purpose? And who were you addressing, the public or the trustee? because your action made no sense. I would be able to ask my question during the question period, and I would get a response directly from the chair of the board. How wonderful. And I took comfort in that and remained in my seat for the rest of the meeting. The meeting progressed, and each item on the agenda was being addressed. Finally, item 17 came up, public questions. This is a time when members of the public can ask questions through the chair of the board. If anyone has questions, I would ask that you come forward so that we can begin. As stated by the chair, I stood up, walked down the steps, and was third in line to ask my burning question. But to my surprise, I was not able to ask my question. Instead, I was told, send me an email with your question and we will try to answer it directly. I stood there in disbelief as to what had just happened. I was told in a not so nice tone that my question I would not be able to ask my question. This is after I spent hours listening to the board meeting that went past 11 p.m. on a Tuesday night. The individual before me was able to ask their question during the public question period on the same issue that she had just delegated about earlier in the board meeting, and the chair answered all of her questions. In fact, the chair sought out answers by turning to the Director of Education for assistance in order to answer the questions. Under the rules of delegation, the board must provide a written response to the person who delegated. So why was she allowed to ask the same questions during the delegation and again during the question period in which a 15-minute time limit was evoked by the chair? How can I not interpret what I just experienced as an example of white privilege at the board? Because the next person to ask a question was me, and I was told question period is over. I, like other members of the public, take time out of my evening with my family to attend the board meeting because the issues are important. Board trustees are elected to attend and be part of the board meeting. This means staying and allowing members of the public to have an opportunity to ask their questions when the question period is listed on the agenda. It also means looking at the past, the current, and future agenda at the board and noting that the public questions are growing. Therefore, public questions should be allowed. And ask yourselves, who are you here to serve? Yourselves or the public? You are public servants, and you need to respect your constituents. Treat all members of the public with respect and do not silence our voices. When public questions are placed on the agenda, then allow them to happen. Because if I had been allowed to ask my question on January 28th, 2020, during the public question period, I would not be here today using delegation time to ask my questions, which is, 1, why did the chair make a public apology when the trustee was not even in the room? And 2, that same chair of the board, would they repeat the apology to the trustee in a respectful manner right here and right now? And I strongly suggest that to all the trustees to really spend time and discuss how to better handle question period at the board, because invoking a 15-minute time period for question at the end of the agenda during a time of ministry review does not sit well within our community. We want change. Thank you.
Thank you. Well done. And so we're going to ask you to pass your speaking notes over to Donna Baptiste. But before you do I have any questions of clarifications from trustees? See none. Thank you very much for your delegation. So the last delegation will be Kola Yuliamadi. So please come up front, announce your... Okay, good. So please come up front, give your presentation, announce who you are, and you have 5 minutes.
When you irritate power, there are reprisals. They come in different forms, especially when it concerns the Black and African community, students and their families. We expect from this board to do more than just issue statements about Black History Month and recognize that we're more than events and soliloquies. We enjoin the board to make history itself by ending the structural racism inherent in the outcomes of an equal education at this board by directly ending the disparities and disproportionalities the Black and African communities have been complaining about. In my professional opinion, says Steve Hall, cuffing an out-of-control 6-year-old child is using excessive force. This demonstrates that the adults lost control of the situation and of their emotions. For police to enter a gymnasium during an assembly and physically pick up this child is appalling. To later use a set of mechanical restraints made for adults and place her in a prone position is far from best practice. He further said that his attention is drawn to the fact that one police officer noted her calm, but strongly reacted when the second officer arrived. I wonder why 2 separate officers will be required to respond to an out-of-control 6-year-old who is in an elementary school. Secondly, 2 weeks ago, a father of a student in one of the schools at Peelschools went onto the radio and informed the public how his 16-year-old son was fingerprinted, had a mugshot taken, and left in a cell for 6 hours. And coming back 2 days later to see the same principal with the police
Okay, let's not mention staff.
I'm not
please.
mentioning anybody's name.
Please, no
Okay,
staff.
So I'm gonna take my time back. 2 days later to see that in that school, a police officer, a white police officer with a white parent and a white student were walked into the principal's office, which shows differential treatment that was given to the white family. It's also interesting that that school bears the name of one great Canadian who has identified and who talked about anti-Black racism in 2005, and his name is Stephen Lewis. Why? One of the things that we're concerned about is why the school and the school board and the police protocol have never been distributed to parents and students, as it has been touted by the provincial model protocol. Why hasn't the Peel District School Board provided the climate of a multidisciplinary team regarding threat management assessments? Why has the procedure of police interviewing students on school premises not been in accordance with the model provincial protocol? The protocol also states that in terms of when the police officer comes onto the premises, the legal rights in the investigation of the school-related incident, the legal rights of that youth, either be a suspect, Particular attention must be given to that student by the principal and the police to procedures that are consistent.
Okay, well, we're not talking about specific incidences.
I am not
Okay.
talking about, please,
Perfect.
I take my time back.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
because I'm not talking about specific, I'm talking about a protocol
Perfect.
that this board should be following and is not. So now you've distracted me.
Sorry,
So I'm taking my time back.
I paused.
Our communities request to know why the Peel District School Board has not given that protocol to parents, to students, and why that protocol is not in the different languages that the protocol calls for. Therefore, on behalf of the Black and African communities whose children are targeted by this board, we demand that the board stop surveilling and handcuffing Black and African children, and not only contact the police in exigent circumstances until such a time that an appropriate review to combat this racist school-to-prison pipeline is ended. Let's be clear, bottom streaming our children from elementary school is violence. Surveilling and handcuffing our children is violence. And I wonder if there's any parent in this room who will not fight to protect their children. I ask every parent here tonight how you would feel if your 6-year-old daughter was lying prone on the floor with police officers with her being handcuffed. The community has also learned about how scared, tense, and harangued the Black teachers are as they face racism regularly and incessantly, and the community acknowledges the mental gymnastics and double consciousness they contend in the purpose of their duty.
Are you
We
wrapping
might
up
be
now?
dismissed, disregarded, and derided. I'm almost finished because I'm taking my time back here at Peel District School Board, but the community will continue to resist until our children are free, and the board and the unions bear that responsibility as well. We will ensure that you are both held to account.
Thank you. So, you don't have notes printed, so can you email that to Donna Baptiste afterwards so we can properly respond
I'm not
to you?
supposed to be emailing to any board member.
Okay, so
Right.
can you, okay. Okay, we'll listen to the audio recording and we'll respond accordingly.
That usual
So do
do.
I have any questions of clarification from trustees? Seeing none, I will move on to the next section. Seeing we have no old business, we're going to go on to item 9, new business. So I have a motion here by Trustee Green. Trustee Green, you're going to move it on the floor?
Yes, please.
And do you have a seconder?
Yes, Trustee Cameron. Yes.
Trustee Cameron will second this. So now that it's a property of the board, we'll start the process of debating the motion. We will give you 5 minutes to introduce your motion, Vice Chair Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the motion is clear. Basically, and trustee had it, it would serve as a notice to trustee. So I'm basically just asking trustee, as we discussed, how this motion will help us to dialogue with each other, build relationship in terms of dealing with issue that maybe each trustee might be dealing with in their community, and how we can support one another. So I'm asking you tonight to support this motion, that we create this trustee caucus, where we can able to have that trustee caucus, where we can discuss, build relationship, and network with each other. So as we move forward, we support each other in helping each other to make sure that we're serving our community properly. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Green. I see we have someone, Trustee DeGroot, you'd like to speak to it.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And I've expressed this several times to Trustee Green and to some of my colleagues. I have absolutely no problem with building relationships and having dialogue. I think that's very important. But I am concerned about this because all of our dialogue is supposed to be taking place in public. I'm not going to be supporting it because I am concerned about the impact it would have on transparency and governance. And the reality is all trustee discussions should be open to the public as per the Education Act. The public is actually prescribed in the Education Act as a part of our process. And we are currently under review by the ministry, not just for anti-Black racism and other discriminatory practices, but also for our governance model and how transparent that is. And the answer to that is not less democracy, it's more democracy. And the public's role is very important in the work that we do. And I'm going to actually read Section 207 of the Education Act, which I strongly believe that this committee would contravene. Section 207 of the Education Act is titled Open Meetings of Boards. Subject to subsections 2 and 2.1, the meetings of a board and the meetings of a committee of the board, including a committee of the whole board, shall be open to the public, and no person shall be excluded from a meeting that is open to the public except for improper conduct. Closing of certain committee meetings. A meeting of a committee of a board, including a committee of the whole board, may be closed to the public when the subject matter under consideration involves A, the security of the property of the board, B, the disclosure of intimate, personal, or financial information in respect to a member of the board or committee, an employee or prospective employee of the board, or a pupil, or his or her parent or guardian. C, the acquisition of or disposal of a school site. D, decisions in respect of negotiations with employees of the board. Or E, litigation affecting the board. These are the 5 instances, the only 5 instances where the 12 of us are legally allowed to have a discussion in private. All other instances, when this board meets and there's quorum, all discussion needs to happen in public, hopefully in this room, with notice to the public. So that is why I am wholeheartedly not supporting this motion. I would not participate in any meetings, even if it includes not making decisions. Our discussions are part of the democratic process. Our discussions need to be in a public space. And I feel very strongly about this, and I won't be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee McDonald.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, I'd like a recorded vote for this motion, please.
Okay.
While I believe I understand Trustee Green's intent to establish a Trustee Caucus, I have great concerns. The motion indicates that a Trustee Caucus will allow for trustees to build capacity, develop relationships, network, and discuss issues that affect trustees in their individual communities. To me, this sounds like a club for the in-crowd. How can this caucus serve all trustees when you have trustees that don't feel safe in spaces? We have trustees that in 5 years have never spoken a single word, not even good morning, to a certain trustee. How can we develop relationships in such an environment? We do not have the professional capacity to do this. We need expert help to begin to try addressing some of the deep-seated issues like racism, bullying, harassing behavior, name-calling, labeling, to name a few. Just my mere presence in front of this microphone evokes such a loud and audible groan. Why would I subject myself to such abuse? I already am here at the board table, and the public can witness firsthand the micro and macro aggression from all levels. I don't want to be forced to be subjected to more of the latter behind closed doors. It is one thing to believe in equity, inclusion, transparency, and communication. It's another thing to actually practice it and allow for the voice of the minority to be heard respectively while ruling with the directive of the majority. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else want to speak to the motion on the floor? I see Trustee Marchand.
Yes, thank you, and through you, Chair, just a question back to Trustee Green in relation to the legal question that Trustee DeCreux brought up. I assume that we have had some legal advice and looked at some best practice, both from the ministry and from our own internal resources. So I'm just wondering if we can be assured of that the intent of this and the execution of this would still fall within the framework of the educational law.
Yes, thank you for that, Trustee Marchand. That is a good question. I make sure that I did my homework. I've been serving on this board for 17 years and sit at the Ontario School Board level for 10 years, where I make sure that I know my job, I know my responsibility, I know what we can do and we can't do. And other boards across the province have this. And I can tell you, there's a number of school board that does this, where they can build relationship with trustee. We're at a place right now where we need to ensure that we are having open doors and providing access of opportunity as trustees so we can network. We can talk about issues. We are not making decision. It's talking about issues and building relationship, providing professional development for trustees. And the motion actually, I make sure that I send it to the trustee, not the board lawyer, but the trustee lawyer, to look at it to make sure that it was proper and appropriate before I brought it forward. So that's the reason why it's here. It was vetted by our own lawyer. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have any other speakers to the motion? You've already spoke to the motion. Okay, I'll let you have a point of order. What's the point of order?
So it's not a point of order, it's a point of privilege, since everybody's talking about an issue that I brought up.
Doesn't matter. What's the point of, what is the concern you have?
So,
Point of order.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, she can't have a point of privilege. She spoke already. She's allowed to speak once.
That's correct.
Okay.
So do you have a point of order of something that's happened, a
yes,
bylaw that has been breached?
I would like that in writing. If you're gonna have a legal opinion around here, that needs to start coming in writing. And we always have legal opinions.
That's not, sorry.
That's not for her to decide.
I'm sorry, that's not a point of order item. That's not a breach of our bylaw. Anyone else have any questions or comments on the motion before we go to closing? None? So as the process goes, Trustee Green, you can close the debate on your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, as discussed before, we're at a point as a board. I came to a board that believed in transparency, integrity, trust. And over the years, we have worked together as a board and build those trusts. And it was through those times when we had network, when we had trustee retreat, that we were able to develop a relationship with one another. And that we were creating opportunity wherein that we could able to have dialogue. Trustee got tools so they know how to do their job and do it well. We were seen as a board at #1 in the province of Ontario. I cannot say for that today. When I got elected as vice chair, I made a commitment to this board and to the community. Mr. Chair, could you call order, please?
Yes, please.
Okay? This is not a show.
It's funny.
No, please, order. Otherwise, I'll call a recess, and if we can't do that, then we'll go into a private meeting. And I don't think the community here want a private meeting. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When I got elected as vice chair, I promised that I will do everything to restore trust amongst my colleagues, our staff, our community, and our student. And I have started on that journey. And this is a next step in doing that. So I'm asking my colleagues tonight, you trustees, we were here and we attended that trustee retreat for a day and a half. And I believe that I heard good stuff, good comment came out of that. Let's continue building that relationship. Let's continue networking. Let's continue developing our capacity that we are able to serve our community and get back to the business of serving kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Green. So now that we've had all discussions on it, we're going to now go to a vote. It's been requested for a recorded vote. So I'm going to turn it over to our board reporter. And so those all in favor of this motion, please stand.
Trustees Lawton, Davies, Benjamin, Sohi, Andrews, McDonald, Green, Cameron, Marchant, Crocker, Student Trustees Aurora, Nar.
Those all against the motion?
Trustees DeCroop, McDonald.
Thank you. And the results are?
10 trustees in favor, 2 student trustees in favor, and 2 against.
So the motion carries, is approved. Thank you. Okay, so we move on to the next motion. 9.2, Trustee Crocker's request for a letter to Ministry of Education on government cuts. So, Trustee Crocker, I respect your intentions on this motion, but in consulting with various people, I have to rule this motion out of order. And please. There's 2 reasons this will be ruled out of order. The first reason, according to Robert's rule of meetings and order, that we don't pass a motion twice in a row. Last year, we passed a motion to write a letter to the government, which we issued on March 28th, addressing these specific issues. It's clear, it's on our website, our stance for our students and public education. So we can't pass a motion that we've already passed already. Also, I'm going to open up to Trustee Green, who is a representative on our OPSPA, the group that is at the negotiation table as we speak for this process. And he will also talk about the second point of order on this motion.
So thank you, Mr. Chair. So to our staff, we want you to know that we stand with you, that we understand. I have received maybe over 100 letters already, and up until yesterday, I was still replying to them to let you know that everything that you outline in those letters, we stand for them. However, please understand, the Ontario School Board Association, which represents 32 school boards across the province, we agree to develop a position paper outlining our concern to the minister, which was done. I represent Peel at the executive level, where that was vetted and presented to the minister. Personally, we also, over the last few months, and you may have seen it, and if you haven't seen it, you can look at the OPSPA Board website, the nuance report that we did across the province of Ontario. And I believe that speaks volume to your concern and to our concern, because your concern is our concern. We presented, I was one of the trustees that marched down to Queen's Park on Advocacy Day and present that personally to the minister. We had a news release that said, here, you don't want to listen to us. Here is what the voice of our parents and our students across the province are saying. We presented that to them. However, OPSPA is asking every board, let us speak with one voice. Let us speak through OPSPA. And some people might say OPSPA has been quiet. Is because at the executive level, they have made a decision not to negotiate in the public. But I promise you that we will continue to advocate for the concern that you have raised with us. Tomorrow at noon, I will be personally meeting with the minister, and I will be bringing your concern. So that's the reason why we have to make sure that we are following the rules and procedures. So we're not shutting you down. Believe you me, we understand, okay, where you're coming from, okay? And we just want you to know that we are on the same road together, advocating for what's right.
Order, order, order.
Okay.
Thank you, Trustee Green. So I see Trustee Crocker.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know where to start with my opposition to what I've heard here. My first point of order would be, how can you rule it out of order when it isn't even on the floor yet? I gave you notice of motion 2 weeks ago. I followed the process. I have a seconder, unknown to the group in front of us right now, because that opportunity hasn't appeared for us. Most of the people in the room do not have the motion in front of them. I should at least be allowed to read it and have it seconded before you rule it out of order.
So I appreciate that, but talking to a parliamentarian, I can rule it out over before it comes on the floor. Once it comes on the floor, then it's in discussion and it becomes property of the board.
Say again, I didn't hear the last bit.
So I can rule it out of order. I've talked to our parliamentarian about that.
So my next point of order, I guess, would be to appeal this.
Absolutely, and you're more than welcome. We went through the appeal process earlier today. You would like to appeal my my order, calling it your motion out of order. So I will hand it over to our director, who will then go through the process of appealing my out order. Okay.
Thank you, and through you, Chair, once again, in accordance with Bylaw D15, to overrule the decision made by the Chair, a majority of members must vote in favor of the appeal. So I will ask, as I did earlier, all in favor of the appeal against the Chair's ruling? Okay, I have 3 trustees and 2 student trustees, sorry, 4 trustees. And all those who are against the Chair's ruling, or sorry, against the appeal.
Okay.
Against the appeal.
Fails.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Please order. So your appeal failed, Trustee Crocker, and I appreciate it.
May I have a point of privilege, Chair?
Absolutely.
So Vice Chair Green got to speak to this, and I don't, which seems kind of out of order to me as well. But in response to that, Chair, and with the best will in the world, I've read the documents that have been forwarded my way by OPSPA. Trustee Green was kind enough to forward them again. They're complicated. There's a whole lot of hypertext. Go to this document, go to that document. What I'm hearing from teachers and from families, from parents, is they would like to know where this board stands.
Please order. Order.
They would like to, thank you. They would like to know, Chair, where their elected trustees stand. Without a lot of, OPSPA submitted a report to the minister in 2019 and all that. Where do we stand on these issues? They're very clear. I would dispute that the letter that we wrote, as good as it was, covered all this. It did not cover all this. There are aspects in this motion which are simply not covered, and the people of Peel need to know where we stand. So my point of privilege, Chair, would be, given what Vice Chair Green's just said, can we put out, as a Board of Trustees, a nice, neat, short statement, clearly understood by all, which says where we, as a board, stand?
Thank you, Trustee Crocker. And we'll take that under advisement. We've already communicated such things to the board, but we can certainly, I'll talk with you and we'll see what we can do to refine it to what your needs are. Okay?
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Press your mic, please. Point of order. Yes.
Point of order.
Yep.
So are you agreeing to put out a statement? Because
No,
wanted to
I
amend-
said we've been putting statements out to trustees, as you're quite aware, in emails, and I'll review that with him to see what his concerns are that we're not covering.
Okay.
Okay?
And so a statement is not going out? Because I
No.
would like to see certain things on a
No.
statement if it's going out.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Take it under.
Yep. Okay. Item 9.3, motion by Trustee Cameron, human sex trafficking prevention strategy. Trustee Cameron, I'll give you 5 minutes to introduce your motion, but before we do that, you put it on the floor. Who is your seconder? Trustee Sohi. So please start.
Okay, thank you. And through you, Chair McDonald. Trustees, I would argue that this is a self-explanatory motion, one that I would hope we can support collectively. It involves joining our community partners in an attempt to protect children in our board from potential harm. The Dufferin Peel Catholic District School Board heard this delegation before we did, and the Caledon trustee there presented a motion to his board very similar to what I am presenting here. It was passed there unanimously. This motion asks that the board confirm its membership on the Peel Human Trafficking Service Providers Committee and continue to support the work of the members of this committee in our schools. The wording of this motion has been completed in collaboration with the Director's Office. In particular, I'd like to thank Associate Director Harmon for his time and help with this. I ask for your support for the representation of our board on the committee and our efforts to help protect children in our board. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for introducing that motion. Do we have anyone who wants to speak to the motion? Okay, Trustee DeCroop.
Thank you very much, Chair. I am very supportive of this motion. I think it's a very important issue, not just for Caledon, but for our entire region. I think we need to ensure that we take a more active role in community safety and work with our region to and our municipalities to ensure that we have mechanisms in place and also to tap into resources that are available that may be available through funding from different sources that we may not have access to, but may be very helpful for our students and for our classrooms. I'd like to make sure that if we are committing to this, that we do have full participation by staff and attendance at the committee meetings, and that we would provide regular updates to the board, because I think it's important that we start keeping track of some of the initiatives that we are taking part in, and that we are fully informed of how things are developing, especially if we are providing our name, attaching our name to it. But I'm very supportive of this. I think it's very important work, and I thank Trustee Cameron for bringing it forward.
Thank you. Trustee Sohi.
Thank you. To you, Chair, I second this motion and fully supportive of this wholeheartedly, the motion which is put forward by Trustee Cameron. Human trafficking is a very complex issue with a diverse range of victims and the circumstances. A very serious issue facing our community and needs to be dealt with by all stakeholders in order to eradicate it completely. And I think I agree with the Trustee DeCroop that we need to be fully active. Sometimes we are just saying that we are participating in these things, but we are not bringing back what we are doing, how we are representing on that table, and how we are bringing this information in our schools when we have our vulnerable kids, that no one is grooming them for all these things. So I'm fully supportive, and I'm looking forward to have active work in our schools around this. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Marchand.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Chair. I too, I think as we spoke to this briefly at our last meeting, am in support of this. I would like to add an amendment, though, that we request this, and the amendment would be, and whereas the important nature of this and the immediacy of need for action on this matter, that the appointed members report back quarterly to this board on the progress made with the committee.
Can we shorten that, just say, and whereas report quarterly?
That would be fine. I'm quite happy for you to word that anyway, but that the board receive quarterly reports back on this.
Okay, so that's an amendment, so that's now on the floor. I believe I need a seconder of the amendment. No seconder. So we're now, sorry? Let me put your mic on. Oh, that's what I said, I need a seconder, right?
For the main motion.
Oh, I thought Balbir was, I got that was correct. But now we got the amendment, so that's now on the floor, and now we're gonna talk to the amendment. Okay, do I have anyone who wanted to talk to the amendment?
So you need to ask him if he's okay first with the amendment.
Am I, well, okay, so apparently, everyone, just to let you know, in our governance discussion and discussions, we're not really supposed to be doing friendly amendments and stuff. We're supposed to go through the appropriate amendment process. So, you know, and that's what we're gonna do. And so as a result, we have this amendment to the motion on the floor. And so it's been spoken to and put on the floor. So now I'm going to give every trustee the opportunity to talk to the amendment. And I see we have Trustee Cameron, who would like to talk to the amendment.
I would. The amendment doesn't in any way change the intent of the original motion, and I'm happy. We have talked about this as a group, time tagging things so that we have them come back to us. So I'd be happy to support this amendment.
Do we have any other people who would like to talk to the amendment? Okay, so just to make sure that we're all understanding the voting on what we're voting for as amendment, and whereas the board has provided quarterly reports. Okay? Everyone understand the motion? Okay. So, all those in favor of this amendment? Okay, it's passed. So now we're going back to the motion with the amendment, and anyone else like to continue on the conversation on that new, we can't reconverse on it, but we can still continue to talk. And no one else? So, I'll give Trustee Crocker.
Thank you, Chair. Just a point of clarification. The title is quite clear, Human Sex Trafficking Prevention Strategy. However, in the motion, and I understand that we don't control the name of the group, but I wonder if it's correct. The group is called the Peel Human Trafficking Service Providers Committee, which I don't think is really what we want. And I'm wondering if there's been a mistake made here in the nomenclature, or whether we should be appealing to the committee to add the word prevention.
Okay, and I'll pass it on
by
to...
analogy, Chair, if I may ramble just a little bit, it's like if you've got an anti-racism committee, you call it anti-racism, you don't call it the racism committee.
So I'm going to pass it on to Associate Director Mark Harmon, who is on his touching base on this, so he can give us the actual committee name.
Through you, Chair. So Trustee Cameron would have asked me the same question. So we went back to the actual delegation from Joanna Downey and checked the name of the service provider group, and that is the title that the group has. And we would have also done that through Jim Van Buskirk, our Chief Social Worker. So that is the actual name of the committee.
And have you asked them to change it?
We can certainly talk to Jim Van Buskirk about that, our Chief Social Worker, yes.
It would be appreciated. Thank you, Chair.
I'm going to also give Director Joshua.
So apologies through you, Chair. I'm not sure. I didn't quite hear the last part of what Associate Director Harmon said, but just so the board is aware, we did receive an invitation actually today to the first anti-human sex trafficking task force was the title that was given to this group. So that's the name of the, in accordance with the email, but it doesn't mean we can't go back and give some suggestions as to what it's named. Yeah.
So let me just give you, so would you like to put an amendment to change the name of that?
I don't think that would be in order, Chair. It's you to decide, but it's not our committee. We can't change it, but we can ask them to change it. I mean, we're a school board. We should be able to ask for things like that. You know, we're supposed to be all about clarity and public information.
So I'm just going to go to Associate Director.
Sure, through you, Chair. You're absolutely correct. There will be a number of service providers, Peel Regional Police. There are a number of community agencies such as Covenant House, etc., that do participate in this. So I believe there are dozens of members on this committee, but I will email Chief Social Worker Van Buskirk and I will copy you.
Thank you, Associate Director Harmon. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Trustee Crocker. Trustee Benjamin.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, I fully and wholeheartedly support this motion. I was just reading some of the reports and I'm just going to bring out 2 points. Young people from our own cities are being exploited, and many of these young people are from stable and well-educated families. And according to the Peel Police, the most vulnerable ages where people are being exploited for this purpose is 13 and 21. And many of our students fall within this age group. Therefore, it is very important that we also support this motion and do our best to help the police get rid of this menace in society. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who'd like to talk to this motion? So since we already have a put on the floor and seconder, it's ready to time to vote. Trustee Cameron, do you want to close your motion? Awesome. There we go.
I'm not sure that I could add anything that would change, hopefully, the movement towards approval here, Chair. I will say that I'm very pleased that Vice Chair Green has declared his interest and willingness to help us as a board follow up on commitments that have been made for community committee involvement, and that's quite frankly good enough for me with Vice Chair Green's word. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Trustee Cameron. So all those in favor of this motion? Approved. Good. So we now move to our next item on the agenda. It's establishing a Board of Governance Committee and notice to appoint trustees to the committee. We have the motion in front of us, which is to create this governance committee, and then we'll be having members voted at the next meeting to join that. So, Trustee Green, do you want to introduce this at all or comment or no? Okay. Okay, so I'll have, first of all, I need someone to put it on the floor. Trustee Davies, do I have a seconder? Trustee DeCroop? Okay, now it's on the floor, we can have a discussion, and Trustee DeCroop, you're now, the floor is yours.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I'd like to clarify, first of all, that this committee's only purpose would be amending the board's bylaws and policies to enhance our practices around governance. It would not in any way be responsible for reviewing notices of motions, and those would always come directly. There will always be a mechanism for notices of motions to directly come to the public board. I just want to clarify that that's the intention of this.
Absolutely. So in point 1 of that, it clearly states is creating and or amending the board bylaws and policies to support and enhance best practices for school governance board. There's nowhere here that talks about it. Other boards, just for FYI, have other committees that they use and do other processes. but we haven't adopted anything. Maybe that might come out of this governance to say, try a new, different model, but that does not say anywhere in here that it'll be a a motion clearing process.
Perfect, thank you, I really appreciate that. I'm very supportive of this. You know, I'm very interested in this kind of work because democracy is quite important to me. And I'm not to say that it's not important to everybody else, but it's really important to me. Yeah, so I strongly believe, and I've voiced this a number of times, that I think that our current bylaws are archaic and quite undemocratic, and I think we need to really spend some time taking a look at everything and literally just starting from scratch to make sure that, you know, that when the public gallery is full and people are watching us do our job, you know, we're not hearing people, you know, expressing laughter and they think that what's going on is you know, a little bit nonsensical. So I really look forward to this work. I don't think we're appointing anybody today. I think it's
No.
in February 25th. I'm telling everybody I'd be interested in doing this work, so from now. Yeah, I look forward to this, and I hope it starts as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak to this? So, Trustee Cameron, yes.
Thank you, Chair. This is really maybe a correction in the wording.
Yep.
I did share this with you previously, but point 3 and point 4 use the word his. So for example, in point 3 it says the board shall preside in his absence, and in point 4 it says the Director of Education or his designate. I think we would know that making this gender specific
absolutely.
Is not
Absolutely, and I'm just going to confirm, do I need an amendment? Apparently I don't need an amendment here. Thank you for bringing that. I know we communicated, and I was hoping you would bring that forward. So, perfect. So we just changed the his to their in point 3 and point 4. Anyone else want to continue to speak to this motion, or are we ready? Sorry, sorry, not a motion. Anyone to speak to this report? Notice? No? Okay, so I'm going to call a vote. All those in favor? Passed. Thank you. Next item. Where are we now? Wow. Item 10, reports from director and staff. I don't think I have any reports from director and staff. Okay, so we're going to now move on to our items for receipt. These are items that are just for receipt, not approval. So I just need someone to put it on the floor and nothing more. So Trustee Benjamin would like to put these on the floor. We're going to do a consent agenda, which we've talked about many times, where we're going to take all items together and approve them at once. However, as a trustee, you can individually speak to any one item if you wish. So, does anyone want to speak to any one item in the, I need a seconder, I apologize. Trustee DeCroot, will you second that? Yep. Okay. And this is for receipt. So anyone want to talk to any one item? Okay, Trustee McDonald, yes?
Thank you. I just have a question with 11.15. Is that included in the receipt?
Sorry, I missed the question. What was the question?
11.15. When you say notice for the receipt,
Yes.
is that included in that bundle?
Just a second. Got everything beeping here at me. 1.5. What is 1.5? I don't have it in my package. 1.5. Oh, sorry. So, as you can see, these are items for future agendas beside them. So item 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, 1.6, they're going to be coming at a future agenda. So we're not receiving those.
Okay, so we're not receiving these?
1.3, 1.4, 1.5, 1.6. That's our normal practice.
Okay.
We put it in there as a placeholder, and then the minutes don't come, and then we put it on the next board meeting.
Okay, thank you.
No, good question. Anyone else want to speak to this? Then all those in receipt of all these items? Perfect, passed. Okay, we move on to item 12. I think it's just OPSPA Connects. Trustee or Vice Chair Green, do you want to put that on the floor since you're on the OPSPA? And Trustee Andrews, you'll second that? Does anyone want to talk to it? Seeing none, all those in receipt approval? Okay, receipt approved. Okay. Okay, so that's 12 done. 13, communications for action and receipt, we see none. Reports from trustees and representatives on councils and associations. Do I have anyone? Okay. I see Trustee McDonald first.
Yeah, sure. So just an update on the Peace Arts Committee. So that's our Active Roots Committee. And at the last meeting, we discussed the grant, and we are going to be using the grant for workshops, for parent groups and teachers to try and increase the buy-in to active transportation starting in April. We're also going to be on a campaign for use of the 311 system because a lot of parents in a survey we did cited safety concerns or unkept sidewalks as a reason for not walking or riding to school. We're also going to be targeting children and giving out information to the schools and targeting the younger children, as well as setting up a calendar of activities because the committee is really trying to increase the number of students that are walking or riding to school. Thank you. And reduce the cars on the road.
So what was the committee? I missed the beginning part. Just what was the committee you said you're on?
Oh, Peace Arts.
What's that stand for?
It's the Peelschools Active Routes Transport.
Okay,
Yeah.
good, thank you. Anyone else? Reports from councils or associations? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the next section, 15. Just give me a second. Find it. Okay, so we're coming on to the comments or questions from board members. So in our governance training, the comments section of the agenda does not really follow our Robert's Rules of Law nor the bylaws that support it. It was previously added to a board meeting agenda to allow trustees to provide seasonal greetings and was not meant for every board meeting. Therefore, in the next agenda, this item will be used for questions specifically. If trustees have lots of comments that we'd like to highlight about schools, things they do, we have a good news section that we'd love to put it into our agenda. And we'll go from there. But we probably will, I will allow at the end of the school year and at the end of the various key points in the school year, we can probably have support some comments of ending of the year. So opening up to questions, I'm going to start around the table, starting off with our trustee. Is a point of clarification? Okay, yes.
You said that today it's okay to make a comment.
Today we can, absolutely.
Thank
I'm
you,
just,
I will
sorry,
do that.
maybe I wasn't clear enough.
Yeah.
I'm just giving notice.
So
I said next board meeting. the
Last time I can speak freely.
I think I
Okay.
said it, let me just
Thanks.
see, where did I say? I said the next board meeting, we're gonna move it, yeah. Okay, so, Trustee Nar, Trustee Aurora. Okay, there we go.
Thank you, and through you, Chair, I do have a couple of comments and a question that I would like to ask.
Absolutely.
Firstly, in response to item 11.12, I would like to thank, through you, Chair, Associate Director Gill and Controller John Hartzima for preparing this response. I would also like to thank the Peel Environmental Steering Committee for taking the time to ensure that we do meet our goal of being more environmentally friendly and sustainable, and that we do eliminate all single-use plastic across the board offices. I do have a question, however, through your chair. I am curious to know whether or not we will be releasing this information to the public through any of our social media platforms, because I think that the public would really like to know about these initiatives that we do have towards working towards becoming more environmentally friendly.
So who wants to take? Carla has a hand up, but whose hand first? Associate Director Gill. I'll find you here somewhere. Oh, there we go.
Through your chair, definitely we will work with our communication to develop a communication plan that we can not only share with our schools, but also with our larger community. We will definitely do that.
Thank you. That really is amazing. And I do have a few opportunities that I would like to share with any of the students that are out in the audience today. So in the PRA, which is a private investigating research organization, they are working with the Peel Regional Police to organize a workshop to get feedback from youth from the ages of 14 to 18 about policing within Mississauga and Brampton. So I encourage any of the students that are out here today to register for this if they do have any insight they would like to share. The workshop will be taking place on February 18, and information about this should be on online. I'm pretty sure if you search up, I know I've posted about it, and then it's also being released by the Peel Regional Police, so you can sign up there. You can also contact survey@pra.ca and email them to register. And part of our investigation or the review that we are going through from the ministry, there's also another student engagement session for students from the Black community. So if any students would like to share any insight or experiences that they do have, I think it's very imperative for us collectively to hear their voices. So I encourage everyone to register on the Eventbrite that's on our Twitter page. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Aurora. So, Trustee Crocker, Trustee McDonald, Trustee Marchand, Trustee DeCroux.
Thank you. Since this is my last opportunity to speak freely in this section, and since we have a number of attendees today, I was actually planning to, or prepared to talk about this during the motion about the letter to the minister, but that was ruled out of order by the chair. I spent my entire weekend fielding tweets from teachers, mostly from Peel, because I like to tweet by the Minister of Education about full-day kindergarten. I was mostly called names. Someone even created a hashtag called #FireDecGroup. Some people were respectful. I do appreciate that. Even nice, I would say, even though they disagreed with me liking a tweet. But most would fall in line with what we would commonly refer to as bullying. And what bothered me the most isn't that some random strangers were attacking me on Twitter. My positions on cuts to education have been well articulated for years. My support for full-day kindergarten, smaller class sizes, local priorities funding, as well as my opposition to Regulation 274 are very well documented. So what bothered me is that the people attacking me are people who know me and know where I stand on these issues. And unfortunately, that doesn't work on me. And I am strongly opposed to the bullying and harassment culture that seems to thrive in Peel. Name-calling and personally attacking public officials on Twitter is not advocacy. You can disagree with someone without making it personal, without vilifying an individual because you don't like or believe what they have to say. This is a democracy. So I am asking that we stop vilifying Stephen Lecce and anyone who takes a picture with him. If we are going to change, if this board is going to change, and we have to, it has to start with our teachers, our role models, our frontline staff. And I hope that we can find a way and we can learn a better way to disagree with one another without vilifying one another, without calling each other names, and so that we can figure out a way to have better public discourse that is free and open. I'm not the kind of person who gets easily emotional about things, and I'm not emotional about this. People disagree with me all the time. On Twitter, on Facebook, whichever way. And typically people in public life have...
Yes.
I understand what happened, and I don't know what happened, but we were told as our chair, we can't sit here and have trustee talking about staff in that way. Point of order.
I'm not talking about staff, I'm talking about Twitter.
Yes,
Okay.
It's happened on Twitter. It did not happen on the board, so you're out of order, and I'm calling you on that, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so you're saying that
You're
she's...
defending Twitter bullies.
No. So what you're saying, Trustee Green, is that, Vice Chair Green, that the Trustee DeCroop is making reference to staff in your remarks.
Yes.
Is that the case, Trustee DeCroop?
I am making a reference to the individuals who attacked me on a public space and have been attacking me for weeks now. I don't know if they're staff or not, but a lot of them have identified themselves as that. I'm not saying anybody's name. I'm not reading my mean tweets out in public. I am explaining a situation
so
that had taken... I'm not done. I'm not finished.
No, but you just said that you were talking, you've just said in your discussion there that you said some were staff. So can I please ask you to stop making any reference about our staff?
Okay, I'm just talking about... I'm talking about...
You can talk about anything else, but don't make reference to our staff.
Okay, I just would like to point out...
Thank you, Vice Chair. Anyway, continue on.
I appreciate that. I will continue on. But I would really like to point out that the way I felt right now is that Vice Chair Green just made it okay for people to attack a woman on Twitter
Okay,
for
please.
disagreeing with her.
Trustee DeCroop,
That's what just happened
you are
right
out
here.
of order. You are out of order.
I agree
So
with that.
either
I'm out of order.
you stop, or I will take away your mic.
This needs to become a more comfortable environment for women of color, for racialized females to be able to do their jobs, whether they're trustees, whether they're teachers, whether they're superintendent, whatever they do. This needs to become a comfortable and safe space for women of color. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Cameron, do you have any questions? Comments? Trustee Green? No? I'll start down at Trustee Lawton. Trustee Davies? No? No? Trustee Benjamin? Trustee Sohi? Trustee Andrews? See none. Good. So now we're going to go on to public question period. Okay, where's my next piece of paper? Okay, question period was introduced by trustees to allow members of the community to ask questions of the school board. All questions will be addressed to the attention of the chair and will be issue-based. Like the delegations, it will be respectful and not name anyone, any position or organization in a disrespectful way, or will we talk about any individual case or student or issue in front of our board that identifies a student. If you would like to make a comment, we would welcome you to go through a delegation, but this agenda is for questions only. So from last meeting, and also trustees have come to me, as well as the vice chair, to make things more fair. We will allow one question per person, upon which they will go back to the end of the line and have the opportunity to ask another question. if there's any time remaining in our question period. Please come forward, introduce yourself, indicate where you are from, ask one question. I will do my best to answer or direct the question to the appropriate person. Otherwise, we will respond to you in a future date. So, by bylaw G10, question period will be 10 minutes under my discretion if I deem to extend it. So, if anyone would like to come up and ask questions, if you have any comments, I will ask you to go back to the line and have the next person behind you ask their first question. Absolutely.
You just said 10 minutes, I believe you meant 15.
Correct. Is it late? No, it's not late. I can't use this. I appreciate that. Thank you. 15. So, someone would like to come to the podium and ask the question, and I will be right there. State your name and where you are from.
Ashok Gruwal, Mississauga, parent.
And just give me a sec. I got to start everything and be on start. Okay. Please begin.
Am I allowed to say the word student?
Yes.
Are students allowed to bully people online?
We have a proper process, and each school typically has a social media policy or presence that all students are informed of. And so for that is not allowed, regardless if it's bullying in a classroom or on social media, where I hate to say, unfortunately, a lot of bullying goes on. Thank you.
Can I ask another question?
No, as the next person come up, please, to the mic, ask a question.
Hi, my question is, I asked for a copy of the report for the human rights complaint I put in against the last chair, because I didn't know that there was an investigation as a result of my complaint. And the last time I was here, I did ask to receive a report, and I still haven't received it.
So thank you. We cannot release that. It's a private and confidential item.
Even though I brought the complaint forward?
You've been communicated as a result of your complaint, and the process was, the chair and the other person, an apology was given by the chair. But
no, there was no apology given by the chair.
But we can't release support. It's private and confidential.
You can't release it. Okay.
Thank you for your question. Next person, yes.
Deborah Weston, teacher, Hillside Public School.
Yes.
The board is currently collecting information on violence in the schools and violent incident reports. I'd like to know what the board is doing with this data to decrease the amount of violence that occurs in schools.
That's a question I can't answer, so. It's at the bargaining table? Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Apparently, according to Vice Chair, who's part of our office, that's considered to be an item on the bargaining table, and I cannot answer that. I am sorry. Do I have my next person? Anyone else other than the public? So we're going, anyone else in the public want to ask a question? Okay. Yes. Sorry, just be a sec, I'll get your mic on.
Could we possibly invite that question back following negotiations so that we could answer the question at that time, or defer the question to such time as negotiations are finished?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that forward. Appreciate that. Okay. Anyone else? So, Mr. Ashok?
It's Mr. Gruwal.
Oh, Gruwal, sorry, apologize.
So if someone feels that they're being bullied,
yes,
and they say it in public, does the board investigate when someone feels that they're being bullied?
So I'm going to pass this on to our administration. Which would that be Associate Director Harmon? This is the best to be answered for you. Even though I could give an answer, I think it's best to have it from our people that deal with this on a daily basis.
Sure. Through our discipline policies, absolutely. I mean, if a student is being bullied and is reported, there will be an investigation by administration, typically involving interviewing any and all parties that are relevant, and any progressive discipline that comes out of that would be meted out.
I'm not talking about students, I'm asking about if someone, a trustee, feels that they're being bullied by people, do you investigate? Because someone today said they feel bullied.
So you're just clarifying your question, because it's not a second question. You're asking if a trustee is bullied by a person in the public or person in the school system?
Yeah, if if a trustee is being bullied by staff members.
Right, okay.
Can I use the word staff, or am I gonna be shot down to say the word staff?
No.
Okay, because other people have been told not to use the word staff. They didn't mention any names. I don't want to be in trouble for using staff.
Please just, I understand your question. So, there is a process for trustees to file complaints, as well as anyone, in our school policy.
Okay.
Can I ask again? Okay.
He wants me to ask. He doesn't.
No, it's
the bottom line is I got a bad back, man. I can't be going back and forth like this. Like, I could bring doctor's notes for you. This is like tiring. Going back and forth here.
I'd like to follow the rules, please.
So you're not going to, okay, you're not giving me an accommodation? I can give you doctor's notes. I cannot go back and forth. I'm getting back surgery. I'm asking you if I can stay here and talk.
You can stand at the podium with the next person if that would help you.
Okay. Come. Can you ask them if I can ask them another question?
There's no other questions? Okay, ask another question then, please.
So if someone files a Policy 51 complaint.
Correct.
Does the person who filed the complaint, do they get a copy of the complaint? Of the final analysis of the decision? So if I filed a Policy 51 complaint, would I get a copy of the report that was the findings and the decisions on the complaint?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I'm going to give it over to the director who manages a lot of.
Yeah, through you, Chair, when a complaint is made through the Policy 51, there is a requirement to respond back to the complainant, not necessarily giving a privileged or confidential report, but a decision and response is given back to the complainant.
I think that's outlined in Policy 51? Yes. Yes.
You had a question? Are you sure? So, in Human Rights Tribunal, when someone makes a complaint, they get the decision back with full notes. So why does Policy 51 is not in line? Why wouldn't the applicant who filed a Policy 51 complaint get a report back of what the findings were, especially if the applicant was interviewed? Shouldn't they know what was the decision and why the decision occurred?
So I think the director answered the question that, to your last point, that you know, when they file a complaint and they come back and with the comment of what the decision is, yes, their complaint is valid or their complaint is not valid.
But you don't share the report with the applicant?
The Policy 51, I think, is clear on that.
So where in Policy 51 does it say that? If you can bring it up. I got Policy 51 with me, and nowhere does it say on Policy 51.
I apologize here. We're going to get our HR superintendent, who, that's his...
So we provide a summary report that provides the findings of the investigation. It's not a full report because of privacy for individuals who may have been involved in the investigation.
But I was told that there's a gentleman here, he wasn't given anything.
Okay, we can't talk about his issue. Sorry, that's an individual issue. Sorry.
So if someone filed a Policy 51 complaint and they ask for a report, can't you redact the names and the privacy matters? And also, could we do a freedom of information of a policy 51 complaint?
So to answer your question, a response was given, and as the policy states, and you're asking us to change the policy. That is something that, that has to be a decision by the board.
I'm not asking you to change the policy. I'm asking you where in the policy does it state that you don't share?
I'm not here to argue with you.
No, I'm just asking you where in policy 51, in the document, where does it state that you will not share your findings and the report with the applicant and that things are private?
Thank you.
You didn't answer my question.
It's in the policy, it states
It's
it.
in policy, it's not in policy.
I apologize. Board reporter, sorry. Nicole, do you want to put your mic on? Sorry. Yes.
So under MFIPA, that is the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, that report would contain a whole bunch of information that would be private.
Yep.
It would concern other people, and therefore that report, the investigative report, would not be handed over under Freedom of Information.
Correct. Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. Yes.
So my question is about, there are 3 questions, sub-questions under this one. It's about the graduate coach program, which is for the Black youth.
Yeah.
We don't know the criteria under which David Suzuki and the other school were chosen.
Turner Fenton?
We don't, so we don't know, and then they're under the same trustee, and in the same city, whereas Peel consists of Caledon, Brampton, and Mississauga.
Absolutely. Can we ask one question at a time?
Okay, go ahead.
One at a time. I think Director Joshua can answer that first question.
So through you, Chair, this program has not actually begun. We're bringing all the information to our We Rise Together Community Advisory Committee at their next meeting, and we will be striking a steering committee to discuss the program and all the aspects of where we recommended it to be, based on a number of criteria that include the current programming levels at various schools and where there is an additional need. Also looking at the population of students in those communities. But all that information and the program itself has not actually been started. It's with respect. It will be shared and vetted at our Community Advisory Committee so that they can have some insight and feedback to us before we begin.
Thank you. So does anyone else in the public have a question? Okay, so. Oh, yes, so I have to yield the floor, as we say, one question at a time.
Okay.
So I have 2 questions.
Just one at a time.
Just one question?
And then you can go back and go and.
Okay. The first question has to do with the motion that was passed earlier.
Which one?
With regards to the time for delegation. Was there a reason, the rationale behind reducing the time allotted from 10 minutes to 5 minutes?
Okay, so that wasn't a motion.
Okay.
Okay, so it's policy, as I said at the start of the process, G6. When several delegations wish to address the board on the same topic on the same evening, the chair may reduce the time for each presentation to 5 minutes. This is communicated to affected delegates ahead of their delegation. So that's what I did.
So
that's the one question. Do we, anyone else want to ask a question? Or we?
Sir, with all due respect, I just find you so authoritative.
No, I'm just trying to be fair because we had a lot of people here at the last meeting. And I'm not here to argue, but I'm just explaining the situation. The last meeting, we had a lot of people to answer the question.
That was the last meeting. I'm asking a question.
I know, so I'm
barely, if I may speak, sir.
But please let me speak. I'm the chair. I run the meeting. So what I'm saying is that to try to make the meeting run more efficiently and allow everyone to have a question answered, we went to, as I described, the beginning of this
And that
process.
is fine, I don't have a
Okay,
problem with
perfect.
that. It's just the fact that you did not even finish speaking. I just asked the question, and you can go. That's what you just did.
Sorry, I didn't catch what you just last said there.
It was rather dismissive.
Sorry, I didn't mean to dismiss.
Okay, and I'll ask my second question after. You can go ahead. Can I ask the second
Absolutely.
question? The second question has got to do with, was there a reason why a superintendent refused a community member?
Be careful, we're talking about.
When you're saying be careful, I've never.
No, I'm
I've
just
not
saying, be
done.
careful not to mention any specific people or positions. Do you have a case?
So what if it's got to do with me?
Then if
my
you, okay,
experience?
so if we're talking about a specific situation.
Right.
That would be private, according to, we heard the bylaws and the
It's
education.
not private because I'm the person who
Yeah,
went
but it
through that.
involves members of our staff, and that
Okay.
makes it confidential.
I'm not
and
calling the
we-
name, I just said a superintendent.
So we would take that in private, that conversation, that's all.
Even when I said superintendent, without specific, I mean, you don't have one superintendent. I'm telling you about an experience.
I'm sorry, but if you would like to state the situation in a much different way, you can definitely do that. So,
Okay, here's the situation where a member of the board, or rather the school system, prevented a community member to have students attend the last student engagement.
sorry, last what?
Student engagement that was happening, that was being run by the reviewers.
So you're saying, okay, so that would be kind of out of order, so what I would recommend.
I don't think you
Okay,
understand the
so
person.
please let me
Okay.
finish, okay. So what I'd recommend is you come talk to me, the director and the vice chair, and we'll hear that, not
In private, why not before the people? I mean, I don't understand. Why do I have to speak about it?
Because you're
in
kind of
private?
making a complaint about someone.
It's a question not about somebody, it was about me. I didn't call anybody. My experience, because I went in there as a community member to have students attend the.
Yeah, I know, I understand, we understand, so.
Mr. Green, you're shaking your head. I don't know why you're shaking your head. It's very
No,
dismissive.
Absolutely.
Point of order. What I'm shaking my head is question period.
Okay, just wait.
And you're arguing, sir. It's question period. We promised when we became chair and vice chair, this board is gonna come to order. It's question period, you have a question period. You're asking a question about a staff which is out of order.
What
and
staff?
You cannot ask a question
What staff,
around
Mr.
staff.
Green?
Okay, sir.
Mr. Green, you
Okay.
cannot speak to me
Okay,
that
so-
way.
Please,
Mr.
please,
Green.
it's
Okay,
not
so
here.
I
to-
was talking to you.
It's not,
I think I've been nice. I
am
mean,
not
I've
speaking
not
to
been
you, I'm speaking to the
argumentative.
chair.
Through the chair.
I'm speaking to the chair that your question is out of order and the chair needs to rule it out of order.
Mr. Green, come
okay, so
election time,
please.
you will see me.
So please.
Mr.
you're-
Green, you
you're-
will see
you're
me on
speak-
election time.
That's
And I
fine.
guarantee you
You
that.
can never beat me.
Mr. Green,
Okay,
you will
please.
see me. You're ashamed, Mr. Green.
Please.
No, he's
But,
ashamed.
I may say, if you'd like to bring that issue towards me in private, we can have
Yes,
that
and I would like
conversation.
to do that because I was
Please do.
speaking to you and he cut me off.
No.
He
point-
did by
sorry.
shaking his head dismissively.
So, 15 minutes is ended. If you have further questions, Mr. Gruwal, you can certainly come to me after this meeting. We can go through them. Okay? So, any future business? Nothing on the slot. Adoption of the in-committee report. Trustee Cameron, would you put that on the floor? Trustee Andrews, would you second that? All in favor of the adoption of the in-committee report? So done. So who would like to go for adjournment? Trustee Davies, who would like to second? Trustee Marchand, all those in favor? Adjourned.